Until we communicate that we're having anxiety issues, nobody knows.
In my head.
Hello everybody, if you're new to this channel, I do mental health videos. Please click subscribe if that's something you're interested in. I think I'm just going to start introducing myself at the beginning of these videos because I do have new people coming around. Tonight I'll be talking about anxiety and what that looks like, how do we manage it, stuff like that. I kind of just go on these walks at night and I like to just kind of give my opinions on things and my informed opinions, usually informed, as far as mental health. So we'll talk about anxiety tonight. It is very foggy tonight. It's a dense fog. It's actually like falling and like I can see the raindrops in the air. It's not really rain though, it's just this like dense foggy crap that's falling. So I may have to cut this one short. I hope not actually, because I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about tonight and anxiety kept coming up and I was like, anxiety is so vague, I don't really want to do anxiety. But then as I thought about anxiety, I was like, actually I think I can dig into anxiety in like a way that people don't typically talk about it. So that's what I plan to do tonight and we'll see where I take it. Alright, I'm gonna be distracted all night tonight because this fog is like totally covering up my glasses and I don't really have something to wipe it with. I guess I could use my shirt, but it's just gonna leave a streak. So it is what it is. Anxiety. Let's talk about anxiety. Anxiety shows up in a lot of different ways. So first of all, anxiety is the most common mental disorder. I believe 20% of the population has anxiety, like an anxiety disorder. I may have that wrong. So it's normal. I don't want to say it's anxiety is a normal experience, but even because it's a normal experience, like most people understand what an anxiety disorder is. So anxiety is just stress. It's a reaction to, it's an anticipation of some future stress, some future problem. It's not something that's going on right now, but we are imagining something's going to happen, so anxiety happens. And what I think gets missed when we talk about anxiety is that it's something that we experience in our body, and we have to be aware of our body to feel the anxiety. Now, some of us may experience anxiety as like a numbing or a depression. And I have to be careful with the way I say this because I don't, everybody's experience is a little different, but some of us numb out our emotions. We shut them off. Like anxiety for some of us becomes too high, so we shut off our emotions and we deny them or we ignore them or we don't get in touch with our body anymore. And so when we do that, anxiety, instead of feeling like the typical anxiety that people think of feeling stressed, feeling hypervigilant, feeling reactionary, and like we have to defend ourselves against things, sometimes it can feel like numbness, it can feel like dissociation, it can feel like depression, because we have gotten to a point where it was too overwhelming and we shut down and we shut it off, and now we're no longer feeling that. But the anxiety is still present, it's still there, it's still in your body, and it's still affecting you. It's just affecting you in a different way. Okay, I cut my hair pretty short there, huh? I cut my hair at home and I color it at home. So, let's see. High functioning anxiety. So high functioning is a word that might be a little bit controversial to some. I think it's okay to use the word high functioning. I typically think of high functioning anxiety as meaning it's all going on inside of you, and even though you have this anxiety inside of you, you can still go out into the world, you can still make friends, you can still go to work, but it's still affecting you inside, and it sucks. It sucks because other people don't see it, and I think it would do us, it would be good for us if we could let people know. So one of the points that I want to get across in this video tonight is that anxiety is experienced inside of us, it's experienced inside of our bodies, and the first thing we need to do is acknowledge that it's there. You know, like I said, sometimes we may not feel like we are anxious. We may not feel that feeling of maybe fight or flight that some other people feel. We may not feel like the hostility that other people feel, or the outward displays of anxiety, or we may not feel the self-harm or the self-hating kind of behavior. And I'm generalizing here. Please don't feel like I'm talking about specific situations. I know everybody's situation is different. But first, we have to get in touch with it. Then, I think it's really important for us to communicate it. And to be able to communicate it, we have to have a language around it. So I find it very helpful to just use a 0 to 10 scale, 0 being I'm totally chill, I've got no anxiety, and 10 being I'm going to kill somebody, whether it be myself or somebody else kind of anxiety. Like I cannot stand it anymore, something needs to happen. 5 being somewhere in the middle, like this is really uncomfortable and I don't like it, maybe is a 5. So using that system, I find, helps me a lot to check out my own anxiety, because everybody has anxiety. It doesn't matter if you have a mental disorder. Everybody can use this way of thinking about things, and I think everybody needs to be in touch with their own anxiety level throughout the day, and most of us are not used to doing that. So we may be aware kind of here and there, like I'm really stressed out right now, but we don't like normally check on it throughout the day. Like, do you check on it when you're not stressed? Do you check just to see like, how am I feeling right now? When somebody asks you, how are you? And I know this is kind of like becoming cliche now, but when somebody asks you, how are you honest with that question within yourself? Do you really care about how you're feeling inside, or do you just kind of like brush it off as I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm getting along, whatever? Because if you're not answering that honestly, then you're probably not in touch with how it's feeling inside your body. And like I mentioned, sometimes it feels like emotion, sometimes it feels like anger, sometimes it feels like sadness, but anxiety shows up in lots of different ways, and we have to have a way of labeling it and have a language to describe it, and I find the numbering system helps. So throughout the day, like right now, anxious-wise, I'm probably feeling maybe like a 3. I'm pretty calm. You know, I do get hypervigilant when I'm out here and I check around to see who's around, but I know nobody's really around me right now, as far as I know. And so I'm fine. It's cool. I don't really have a problem. So I would call this like a 3. I guess like a 0 would be like totally at home, totally in my element, like relaxed, maybe in like a nice bath or something. And for 10 for me, especially because I've had that like borderline kind of thing going on inside of me, a 10 for me is really hostile and wanting to like attack somebody. I think that's what a 10 for me looks like. But it's going to look different for everybody. Your 0 and your 10 are going to look different from mine. But what I just did there was I checked in on myself. So what am I looking at when I say those numbers? What I'm actually talking about? I'm talking about the way my body feels. So a lot of people describe anxiety differently. Some people feel anxiety like it's a lightning bolt in their body, or they feel like they're clamped down, or they feel like they're angry and they feel like there's an explosion going on. A slow explosion maybe is the way to describe it for some people. Some people, it might feel like you're an oyster and you're clamping down in the shell and you have to rescind. It feels like you got to go backwards. Other people, it feels like you got to go forwards and push it out of you. It's going to manifest differently for everybody, but it's important to get in touch with it and learn what it is and how it affects you, so that you have a language to communicate it to a therapist, to your friends, to your family, to your loved ones, to whoever, because, as I said, anxiety is not visible to everybody. It lives inside us, and until we communicate that we're having anxiety issues, nobody knows. So having a language for your anxiety is important. Like knowing what it is, how you feel it in your body, how to express it. That's important, especially if you're seeing a therapist, so that they can know. And you don't have to express it, you know. Typically we wait until anxiety gets too high and then we express it by getting angry, being irritable, being moody, screaming, yelling, throwing things, cursing, maybe going the opposite direction and beating ourselves up, yelling at ourselves internally about how much of a horrible person we are and why do I have these bad thoughts and nobody's gonna like me, those kinds of things. Don't let it get to that point if you can. Start to express some of that anxiety to people, whether that be talking. Obviously talking is a great way to do that, but even writing maybe an anonymous blog online, or doing a video on YouTube if that's your thing, or writing a letter to your therapist, or like, it doesn't even have to be communicated and necessarily to a person. You can communicate with God if that's your thing, or you can like I said, make a letter, but maybe just like throw it out or burn it or whatever you want to do. But it's important to kind of have this relationship with our anxiety and to know what we feel like throughout the day, because we are responsible to some extent for our anxiety. Anxiety can come from outside of us, obviously, because when like an animal is attacking us, for example, we're going to feel anxiety. That's going to rattle us. But we are responsible after the fact for managing our anxiety. So I see a lot of people get caught in this cycle of feeling like they are at the mercy of the world and everything is always happening to them, and it's not great for your mental health to always feel that way. If you can take responsibility and say, okay, you know what, this happened to me. Let's say abuse, okay, because I know I talk to an audience who's gone through a lot of traumatic stuff and maybe some abuse. Let's say you were abused, and I'm not saying that isn't horrible. I'm not saying that it's your fault. I'm not saying any of that. But what I am saying is that it happened, and right now, as you're watching this video, chances are, unless you're being like thrown up against a wall or something bad is happening, you're not being abused right now. So you may be feeling anxiety as a result of that, as a result of PTSD, for example, generalized anxiety, whatever it is, but it's in you. It's not outside of you. Remember, right now you're safe, so it's not coming from outside of you, it's coming from within inside of you. So what are you going to do about it, I guess, is the question. And we have to manage it on our own. We can't always look to outside sources to do it for us. You know, we get into this pattern. It's a natural human pattern when we're children of relying on outside sources to quell our anxiety. And if those outside sources, such as parents, didn't do a great job of doing that, then we still continually seek outside sources. We never learned how to internalize and soothe ourselves. So what we need to do is learn to soothe ourselves. And the biggest thing for me, like, I'm just going to throw some ideas out there for you. The biggest thing for me to quell my own anxiety is to slow down my breathing. Get in touch with my breathing, get in touch with my posture. Like right now I'm kind of like slouched over. If I was having anxiety, I would need to like open up my back a little bit, lift up my chest, because your sternum, your vertebrae here, they are crunching down on your diaphragm and your lung. Well, really they're covering up your lungs and they're pushing down on your diaphragm when you're hunched over. So you want to give your diaphragm room to move and room for your lungs to expand. And then you can slow down your breathing. Now, granted, you don't want to do this in the middle of a panic attack, obviously. Then you want to take it seriously, and there's other things you can do for a panic attack. But when you're just highly anxious, slow down your breathing. It will slow down your heart rate, and you will start to feel more calm. So I try to do that as often as possible when I realize that I'm feeling anxious. Something else I try to do is tell myself positive thoughts. So I may be getting anxious because I'm thinking like, this is horrible, what am I going to do? I don't know how I'm going to get through this. If I realize that I'm doing that, and this is why it's important to continually get in touch with your body and get in touch with your anxiety level, if I can catch it and have an awareness of it, then I can say to myself, okay, slow down those thoughts. And this is where meditation helps. If you can get yourself meditating, you can slow down your thoughts, and then you can say, all right, I'm freaking out. What am I freaking out about right now? Is anything happening to me? No, nothing's happening to me right now. I'm okay. I'm safe. And then like I start to say like soothing things like, I'm safe right now. It's okay. I know that I'm scared about the future. Right now I'm fine. I'm going to make a plan. I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to get my resources, whatever resources I have. I'm going to find resources, and I'm going to get through this. And that's what will happen. I'll shift from, oh my God, what am I going to do? I can't do this. I don't know what's going to happen. And I'll shift over to, I will find a way through this. I will be okay. Right now I'm fine. It's going to be okay. Just breathe. Maybe do a little distraction or something to take my mind off of it. So those are just like small examples of ways that you can manage your anxiety, and there are other ways that you can do it. You know, I learned these from dialectical behavior therapy, which I love. But you know, you can just do some searches online, ways to manage anxiety, and everybody's gonna have different ways. Everybody's gonna have things that feel better for them, but explore, learn. It's an important skill to know, and it will help you greatly if you can get in touch with your own anxiety and manage it. All right, so wrapping it up, the last thing that I will say is that you may be somebody who's doing these things already. You may be doing self-care and trying to manage your anxiety. It's still not really working. Some people may need medication to be able to manage it, especially if you haven't seen a therapist about it. Maybe the medication will help the therapist be able to work on it, because sometimes it just gets so high that it's like hard to bring it back down, and the medication can kind of bring it down so that you can work on the other ways to manage the anxiety. I do think there's definitely a possibility that some people have a temperament that just makes them a little bit more anxious than other people in general situations. And remember, we all have different situations. Some people may have different mental disorders. Anxiety can be highly comorbid with all kinds of different things. There's a whole bunch of cars around here lately. I don't know what's going on. So everybody's experience of anxiety is going to be different. That's important to know. And some people may try to manage it and may try to reach out for help and do all these things that I've talked about and still have difficulty with it, and that's okay. That's fine. That's, you know, if it's in the human race, it's a human experience. My channel's all about humanizing mental health, and whatever you're going through, it's okay. So that's what I have to say about anxiety. Let me know what you have to think about what I've said, and let our community know. Is there something that you want to add? Maybe it's something you would subtract from what I've said. Do you regularly check in on your body? Let me ask you that. You know, I talk about the body a lot here, and I do that on purpose because when I healed from PTSD, I needed to get in touch with my body, and I didn't really realize the connection that my mental health, because, you know, mental health, you think of like your brain. I didn't realize the connection between what was going on up here and the rest of my entire body, and it was an eye-opener for me. So I mentioned the body a lot. So I would like to know from you, do you check in on how your body is feeling throughout the day? Is that a regular practice that you do? If you do, does it help you? Let me know, let the community know. If you're new here, I would love it if you would subscribe and hit the bell icon. If you haven't yet, that will give you notifications every time that I do a video. YouTube's changed things around, so you gotta hit the bell if you want to know every single time. If you'd like to support me and what I do, I have a Patreon page, and I put up little like behind the scenes and extras and stuff over there. So you can contribute a little bit of money and then get access to that. If that's not something you're into, totally okay. You know, it is what it is. I'm going to continue doing these videos regardless. So thank you for joining me as always, and I'll see you around, everyone. Take care.